This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Hello and welcome to The Edge, Trek FM show about Star Trek Discovery. This week, Brandon is going to be joined by some panelists to discuss the new episode 11, The Wolf Inside. But before that, we've got a little bit of news. And my name is Mike, and I'm joined today by the one and only Larry Nemecek. How's it going, Larry?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Oh,
I haven't been on the Edge much, so this is great.
Yeah, well, we're really happy to have you. And, you know, we're going to be talking about the whole possible re-merger of CBS and Paramount. But before we get to that, I have to ask, we just saw some Tellarites, some brand new Tellarites. What do you think about the disco Tellarites?
They're a little on the boar side, BOAR, with the tusks and all that. And I saw the first picture and I kind of went, yeah. But then, it's like we've been through the grinder. I love the Andorian, by the way. And I wasn't until a little later I saw the little but nothing about the Andorian. In fact, I think the Andorian's almost the most retro to 60s in a couple of the movie. Not the motion picture guys, thank God, but maybe the one in, because I think the antenna are more forward projected, and the hair is on the thin side. But the Tellarites, yeah, it's like the nose is diluted down like everybody since 1967 has done. I don't know what the pronounced snout does to scare everybody in every generation of redo. So I'm kind of used to the snout not being there because I think it just adds so much to the arrogance. But it's fine. It's fine. The hair was interesting, and yeah, it's fine. I'm just tickled that they're there. I was going to ask Ted or somebody online if they had who picked what aliens they would have at the table, what races, and then you watch the show and they match it to they go back to Kuvma's line about Andorian mixing with Andorian and Tellarite and Vulcan scum or whatever he says.
Yeah, and also it's the founding members of the Federation, right? So
right. But I mean, but they could have. That didn't mean anything to them in that context. But
I think it's a cool mirror thingy, like substitute the Klingons for the humans, and there you go.
Yeah. But I meant I could see they wanted to match to that. If one of the ideas was to go back and grab that dialogue and match it to it and show it the mirror.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the reverse of that you had illustrations right there, bang, 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 as you're repeating that clip of Kuvma talking.
For sure.
Right? But no, I was fine with it. I've just decided that no one is ever going to be brave enough to put the snout out there in all its projected glory with the hard edge. So, because everybody has to make it look more realistic, air quoted. So it'll always be broken down more. But yeah, do we see the hands? I only got one look. And the hands were never in the stills.
Yeah, I don't know about the hands.
There was a thing about whether they were 5 digits or the 3 cloven hooves. But anyway.
Oh, here. No, wait. I'm looking at a picture right now from Entertainment Weekly, which has
Are they clutching weapons or anything?
No, he's just got a gloved hand sitting on a table. It looks like a hand in a glove.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about the Tellarites. I'm sure
I slept fine. But thank you for asking, Mike. You knew I might be troubled.
Well, I see, because I don't know anything about Tellarites, right? I mean, my entire
neither does anybody else.
I mean, my entire Tellarite compass is sort of based on your take on them. So I feel like I need to go to the Tellarite expert to to figure out whether or not I should be outraged by these Tellarites. So it sounds like I shouldn't be outraged.
Well, with what little that guy at his table sitting duties got to do, I don't know that they coached him so much on, arrogant attitude or not. But anyway. Season two.
All right. So anyway, we're going to talk about this. Well, I guess it's a rumor, but it seems like a pretty substantiated rumor that there is some discussions, at least at this point, regarding CBS and Paramount remerging into one company. And that could have an impact on Star Trek. And certainly it had an impact on Star Trek when they split. But I think a lot of people don't really know what it means for us fans. Obviously it means something for stockholders and all that good stuff. But what does it mean for fans? Can you tell us, first off, what happened when they split, and then what it would mean for them to get back together?
And just to bolster up what you said, I wouldn't say it was crazy rumors like the story I took for a while, and I threw the version I threw at Portal 47 guys last week and gals was quoting multiple insiders who spoke to the Wrap, but it's been on Deadline and other places too.
Yeah, these are like legit news sources.
Right. Yeah. And no one's come out and said there's, no one's issued crazy, denials or anything. No, in 05 and 06, it was Mel, what's his name, resigned, and it wound up being suddenly the triad of VPs under Sumner Redstone wound up being Les Moonves with CBS, and the guy I can't remember for Paramount, who's not Brad Gray, the original guy. Tom Freston. Yay, Larry. Tom Freston and Les Moonves wound up being two guys. So rather than reappoint the third one, they looked at each other and said, why don't we split this up and we can have our own domains, with Sumner over it all. But that was such a thunderclap because now they're talking about, before they talked about where Star Trek would wind up, as I always say when people talk about Star Trek movies and they want to compare them to James Bond or they want to compare them to Star Wars or anything, I always go, I hate that because Star Trek movies were never a thing. They were the icing on the cake. They were the reward. They were not set up it's not a cinema franchise. It's a TV franchise with movies as icing on the cake. And that's why it made sense for Star Trek to go to, the worst thing would have been to split TVs from movies in the beginning. So it went to CBS at the last minute in 05, 06 as these negotiations were going along with many more things besides Star Trek, but Star Trek being a big chunk of the negotiation. I've seen people pick this up. I don't know if I started it, but I think I did, talking about the Viacom divorce, because that's basically what made sense to me. And the Star Trek layer of it all just added to that. It was really like a divorce. They're dividing the assets. Who's going to get what? And in Star Trek's case, the biggest, brightest kid was going to go to Mama CBS, and then Dad fought over it a little bit at the end, and then it wound up with Mama, but Dad's Paramount gets to take it out for a spin once every 3 or 4 years for a movie, right? But for all those years of us being in the fallow times for Trek, it felt like Mama CBS was ignoring, the kid. And as we've eventually learned, whatever the amount was, there was that fee that eventually Paramount paid CBS. Once Bad Robot got in, and no, it wasn't going to be 20 years. It was going to be pretty quick. When JJ did his deal with Paramount, and out of the blue, he said, gee, out of my, whatever it was, 12, 15, 20 movie package, I want to do a Star Trek, and shocked everybody just a year later. That was June of 06. People thought Star Trek will be dead and fallow for 20 years. And all the pieces of Star Trek went away. And I'm sorry, I'm skipping around. But that was the vibe. It was funny that they fought over it at the last second, but it did wind up with CBS. We just thought we would see nothing out of it. The main thing in the moment I remember thinking was, okay, we're not going to see any. We had no idea. It was so depressing when Enterprise wrapped. It was like, who knows when we will walk this way again, It's literally, but it's like, well, at least we've got, we have licensing. We've got books, we've got comics, we've got toys. So it was, and then everything went fallow because there was no new Star Trek. Nothing was driving, the boat. Nothing was driving the engine of coolness. And at the same time, like with pocketbooks, it was like, okay, take off. Let's the 8th season of DS9. Let's bring the Voyager people back home and talk about... on one hand, it was a little bit of liberation for the book people. That was the situation in 06.
Yeah.
But all of that ended, what was it, June of 06? The JJ announcement was just like this thunderclap, and then all people could focus on for 3 or 4 years was, oh my God, the movie that will save us all. And, and give direction. And that's all, and all these new people that were new to the franchise, that's all they think about. And I started saying, okay, whether it's good or bad, people will wake up the next day and go, this was a 2-hour movie. It's not a franchise back. We want our franchise back. And we may not get it. We may still not get that for 10 or 12 years. So that was the situation at the time this happened.
Yeah, well, there was that whole...
did I paint it bleak enough for you?
No, I feel like we're, kind of like in the mirror universe still, just like nothing, no light at the end of the tunnel. But even though I know, how the story ends, but okay, so you just had the movies for a while there, and I know that people were like, hey, what about a show? What about a show? And then, word started to kind of trickle out like, well, they can't do a show until they do a certain amount of movies or some such whatever. And
well, what that exposed was, for the first time, movies had been done by Gene and then Harv Bennett, and then when they hit go with Wrath of Khan, in the time that they brought back a TV series, which were under different roofs, not competing with each other, but not really complimenting either until maybe Star Trek VI, and they got together on, let's have Worf on, they did a little of that. And Nimoy was in, the 2-part deal that he was appearing. So there was a little bit of that, but, and then the original cast ended, and then everything was about next-gen people in movies. So, like, Rick Berman got to run TV and movies. It was a complete synergy there. The same people worked on both things, the same assets, the same set pieces, the same people did everything. The best continuity between TV and movies ever was the Berman movies, right? Because no one was like reinventing the wheel unless they thought they needed to. And then we're back now to the time when the movies are run under one roof and the TV series is under another roof. And that brings us in today. But there was no TV for a while because they were so paranoid about, not paranoid, but worried about establishing the movies. They didn't want a TV series competing with it, although we were screaming for all of it. The mainstream thinking was that let's let these movies launch. And I'm like, they're movies. They're not 15-minute podcasts every week. They're movies.
And since then, sort of the landscape of movies and TV has changed in that now You've got the Marvel movies, which are, very much interconnected on the big screen, but then also have a series of television shows which interconnect with them on the small screen. And that's why I think it was kind of surprising at least to me, when Discovery comes out and it's like, oh, that's the Prime timeline. And, the JJ movies are over here in the Kelvin timeline, and never the two shall meet, And I understand how that was partially because, Paramount and CBS didn't want to talk to each other or whatever. But now that they're coming back together, theoretically, like, do you think that we're going to get to see some... it seems like the reason why you do this is in order to create that synergy. Do you think that maybe we'll start...
That you had 20 and 30 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think that maybe we'll start seeing some of that crossover? Do you think we could see could we see a Discovery movie, for example? Years down the line?
I think that's possible.
What is this going to mean? Just in basic terms to you, as someone who has seen all the sides of it, as it's split, now to see it come back together. What does this mean specifically for, I guess, Discovery or the franchise on the whole, just like what we're going to be seeing on the screen, no matter how large that screen is.
Right. Well, I don't think there'll be any magic things happening at first. I think where it might turn up first is in licensing. Now, look, here's just because they get back together, Bad Robot will still have its deal with Paramount, to the point of Tarantino. Now this completely loose cannon entering our little picture, right? Whether that happens or not, he's dealing with Bad Robot to deal with Paramount. the way the layers of contracts go. But we don't know. Will he use the Kelvin cast? Will he do something completely different, crazy, or what? We have no idea about that. So who knows? But at least on the business side of things, he's dealing with Bad Robot. So they're still pursuing their own thing. And whenever that deal ends and whenever that authority ends, that might go away. And by that time, will Discovery's showrunners have a hit? Will they spin out a spin-off show? Will any part of that, whether it's Discovery or it's Discovery the Next Generation or or whatever it is, will that entity become hot and want to go into will the second series be in the same time frame, use all the same assets, or will it be a different era and a different designer? And whatever that is, will something in the TV stable that now is, will the next show still be with, Brian and Alex Kurtzman and whatever this entity is that's doing it, and Gretchen and Aaron showrunners? Will some of the other writers get spun out to do it? Whoever is in charge, will there be an Uber Gene Roddenberry or Rick Berman on the TV side that is a natural, who has film experience, or pulls somebody into his orbit, or her, that can handle a movie that they will trust with a multi-million-dollar? Or will they make small movies, as opposed to the Bad Robot, tentpole mega million things? But for right now, until some of these deals play out on the Discovery side, until things emerge and solidify, and on the movie side, until Bad Robot's deal either runs out or something happens with Tarantino and we see what that looks like. Because the first paradigm was JJ running the show, starting this universe with his coterie of guys around him. And that's all kind of spun out now. And then, then when they take it away from Alex and his guys and they give it to Justin Lin and Simon, you know what I'm saying? This is all bifurcating all over the place now. We don't know. There is no uber all person on the movie side, aside from corporately kind of sort of JJ still speaking. But he's bringing in Tarantino, and he's going to share that spotlight,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what would that even look? So right now, I don't see any big over melding. I could see if their deal goes for a while and the shows get hot. Let's say Discovery, for simplicity's sake, gets hot in a second year or whatever. Or they think maybe with a unified web, we have both. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a little Discovery movie and a huge tentpole franchise. They decide that, or Tarantino's movie is huge and they decide to go that way for a while. But I can see things like the DVDs and licensing and that kind of the home entertainment and licensing and some of these ancillary things. I can see that becoming easier to deal with. Those people will all have an easier way ahead, I think.
So if IDW wants to do a thing where the Kelvin timeline crosses over and meets the Discovery, or we see the Kelvin Discovery or whatever like that, actually that's totally going to happen, isn't it? So that'll be the first thing that we see. But in terms of actually seeing the prime timeline back on the big screen, for example, that we're still probably a good 5-10 years off for that one.
Mikey?
Yeah.
Do you really want to see a Kelvin Discovery?
Hell yeah, I want to see a Kelvin Discovery. Okay. I want to see that more than pretty much anything else aside from that Tarantino movie.
Okay.
Well, this is good to know.
So I think to answer your question, if this actually if it actually happens, I think the biggest impact that fans will see will be in quiet ways. Mm-hmm. Like in the small, like I said, licensing and products and DVDs and that kind of thing.
It'll almost
and eventually they will, because they'll have to figure out the dance.
Yeah.
And if Bad Robot has its thing, and if whatever we call the entity that's producing Discovery has its thing, and they both still retain clout, they will have to. Maybe there would be an Uber sitting. Maybe once they're under a unified roof, and let's say Les Moonves is running the entire recombined Paramount show, or whatever they decide to call it, Viacom show. Maybe he sits down, convenes a summit, and gets everybody back together. Or maybe they decide that that's not doable, and they let the Discovery people do some scale of a movie, and the other thing just plays out. Because, the irony of this is, since now we have terms like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we were, like you mentioned, the whole synergy of TV and movie, and it's such a, look at Marvel do that, and DC doing it, and it's like, Star Trek pioneered the damn thing in the night. We just didn't have fancy, stupid buzzword terms for all of it. It was just like, oh, look, Star Trek is doing more stuff.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
And I don't want to say they blew it, but they blew it when that split totally crippled the ability to do that.
Yeah.
The divorce. See, there's always some unintended victims in divorce.
Yep. Oh, well.
And maybe we can reclaim that potential, but I just don't think it's going to be fast.
Yes. All of this has happened before, and all of this will happen again, but it could be a few years. All right. Well, that's good to know. Thank you for your
or we could have a shining visionary jump up out of the blue who takes command of both. And, we just don't know. It'd
be interesting to see. We'll keep on tracking this story for sure. But in the meantime...
And we'll keep on trekking this story.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
You threw it out there, man. I don't blame you.
I know.
I didn't set it up.
So in the meantime, Larry, what are you up to? Where can people find you around the internet?
Well, funny you should ask, Mike, because, aside from LarryNemecek.com, blah, 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 and Portal47.net, blah, blah, deep dive, blah, blah, I'm very excited because just around the corner, like on January 23rd, carried here on the main feed at Trek FM, but under the Roddenberry podcast banner, I am debuting my first podcast to host called The Trek Files, which is just 15 minutes. Don't laugh. I know people say, Larry, you'll never fit in a 15-minute podcast, but we do. Me and a guest. And it's premiering this week. Basically, Rod Roddenberry came to me and said, we're digging more into my dad's files. We haven't given everything to UCLA. Some of these things I would love to get out and talk about, put context behind them, and some of them are cool for their own sake. Some of them point right to what we're talking about now. So me as host and a guest each week are getting a document out. It might be a script memo. It might be a production note. It might be a letter. It might be all kinds of things. And we highlight that and talk about it for its own sake and talk about why we thought it was interesting now, either as historical hindsight or something that it points to. We had one that, my God, I felt it, and it reverberated so much with Discovery, the pilot of Discovery. We have one document that I fell off my chair because I had no idea it existed, and it will make Trek headlines, if not pop culture geek mainstream entertainment headlines. So I'm really excited. We've had a bunch of them recorded and finessed. I even have an Aaron Harvey logo. We actually announced this at San Diego Comic-Con last July, but it's just taken a while to get all the dots in a row. So it'll be here on the Trek FM master feed on Tuesday, along with the website hub is really just the Trek Files on Facebook. It's all going to be centered on Facebook, the comment threads, and whatever document we talk about will also be there where everybody can see it at the same time. So midnight, 12:01 a.m. Tuesdays, starting the 23rd of January, 2018, the Trek Files will be there every week. It's also at podcast.roddenberry.com and a few other places, obviously. But I'm very excited about that. It's not so big that it's going to take over my life, but it's really going to be cool to dig in. Our guests have included a guy I think the network knows, John Champion, Dave Rossi, who was Rick Berman's right-hand man and associate producer Enterprise and a co-producer on remastering the TOS Blu-rays. And another person you may have heard of, used to go by the initials of DC, but Dorothy Fontana. And they all have, we did like 4 or 5 shows with each one of them. And we've got the first batch ready to go. So I'm very excited. And hopefully all the newbie fans or the fans that, it's for everybody. It's for newbies. It's for people, like I said with Portal 47, people who have no idea how much Star Trek they have no idea about. Because there are some things that popped out that I had no idea. And it's things from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Gene died in 91. It's things to him. It's things from him. Things with handwritten notes on the side from him or other people's handwritten notes to him. And we get into all the crazy movie revival era when all those drafts and pitches and things were going back and forth in the 70s before they settled on the motion picture. We have stuff from that era. So I'm just really excited. And I really think it's something new in the conversation. I mean, one thing I never wanted to do was, there's so many great podcasts out there. I never wanted to do one unless I was adding something new or something on the next level. And I still have my next level idea in mind, but I think this is definitely putting something new out in the conversation that's not out there. And, thanks, Rod's executive producer, thanks to them wanting to get this material out. That's why. So, yes, that's what's going on in my life. Right.
That's really cool. That sounds right up my alley. As soon as I heard about that when you guys announced it at San Diego, I was like, oh man, can't wait. So I'll be anxiously awaiting Tuesday for sure. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Larry. And
Mike, thank you for having me on. It's been fun. We haven't talked in a long time, so I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome back on the Edge anytime. So, all right. Well, I guess that's it for news today. So let's hand it on off to Brandon.
Well, thank you very much, Mike and Larry. We appreciate that introduction, and we are going to have a wonderful discussion. And I've got two talented podcasters with me tonight to help me discuss The Wolf Inside. Joining me is Trek FM's own Tony Robinson, host of Continuing Mission, Star Trek, Trek FM's podcast on fan and independent productions. How are you doing, Tony?
Doing great, Brandon. Nice to be here again. I think I was on the Edge a few months ago, can't remember, making wry comments.
And also joining us for his second appearance on The Edge is Michael Wong, who is the host of Strange New Worlds, which is a science and Star Trek podcast. He was on a few episodes ago where we opened the episode up discussing a little bit about whether or not the spore drive is plausible, and he was on, I believe it was episode 128 of Warp 5, where we did part 5 of our season 3 retrospective. And we're very happy to have you back, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course. It's great to be back.
Excellent. So we're going to jump right in. Here we are in the middle of the Mirror Universe, and I got to say that while there was some stuff here that we were expecting, I think we had some amazing, shocking moments in this episode as well. First impressions of the episode. Well, Mike, what do you think of the Mirror Universe so far, and the fact that they've gone into the Mirror Universe? Do you think it's too early for them to have gone into the Mirror Universe?
Well, it certainly surprised me how early it was in Discovery's run that we encountered the Mirror Universe. But I was just so thrilled. I guess this goes back to last week's episode, episode 10, because that's when we got there to the Mirror Universe. But I was just screaming inside. I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe that we're actually going to the Mirror Universe and spending what seems like at least several episodes, if not the rest of the season, there. So it's really cool to explore the Mirror Universe so in depth, and I think that they're doing such a great job with the whole Mirror Universe concept, and it's just so exciting to me. I really have no idea what's coming next.
Had you heard Jonathan Frakes' leak that we would be going to the Mirror Universe?
No, you know what? I try to steer clear of all sorts of fan theories and spoilers, because I just want to be along for the ride. Honestly, I saw the Tyler Voq fan theory very early on, like right after episode 5 happened. And I was sort of like really disappointed that I didn't get the chance to sort of think about that and discover that myself. So after that, I was just like, no more. I'm just going to try to block all of that out. So I had no idea we were going to the Mirror Universe. And when it actually happened, I was like, yes. During the break between episodes 9 and 10, I just thought to myself, where do I want them to go? One of them was the Mirror Universe. I also kind of wanted them to go to the Kelvin timeline just because that would be super fun. But I realized that one probably is going to be out because of the whole CBS Paramount split. And so I was hoping for the Mirror Universe, but I was thinking like, probably not. But then it actually happened, and I was just so thrilled.
Oh, that's kind of cool because, being with the podcasting network here in Trek FM, we're exposed to a lot of these things, and people post stuff in the Babel conference quite often. And so a lot of people had speculated this, and, we had seen an interview with Jonathan Frakes that like it had been written out in an article, and before Discovery even aired, Jonathan Frakes had said that we were going to be going to the Mirror Universe, and it's like, oh, really? So that was kind of a spoil that was really early on, and it really did kind of color a lot of the ways that we viewed the show, I think. So it's really nice to hear you say that. And I've been watching along with my daughter Aubrey, who's 7, and in between the break, right before the new episode started, I'm like, okay, there's strong indications this is Mirror Universe. I had better show her Mirror Mirror, so she has got some kind of basis for what we're about to go into. So we did watch Mirror Mirror ahead of time, and So she was pretty excited when we actually found out that it was the Mirror Universe. So, Tony, what did you think? Are you satisfied with this? Do you think it's too early for them to be going to the Mirror Universe? What do you think?
No, I don't. I think there was so much anticipation that the Mirror Universe would be a feature. I think it was going to happen, whether we liked it or not. There were so many fan theories about it that it almost wasn't a surprise when they got there, and here they were. We're going to go into some details later on in the show, but one thing is I'm kind of happy about. Not everybody in the Mirror Universe has a little goatee beard, so that's kind of cool. But what would be crazy if everyone did?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's become such a trope. And everybody's like, oh, you know that you're evil because you got a beard. And it's like, well, the only person that's ever had a beard in the Mirror Universe is Spock. Like, nobody else has. And, so they did it with Sarek in this episode. and so everybody's like, oh, it's the beard. Oh, it's the beard. And it's like, no, only one person really has ever had the beard in the Mirror Universe.
I know.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's annoying when I hear that. But I don't know. It's people expressing their love for the Mirror Universe, I guess.
I mean, what's almost even more of a Mirror Universe trend than the beard, as you said, only Spock had the beard, and now Sarek, is a scar, like a big giant scar on your face, because Sulu had that in the original series, and then I think it was Trip in Enterprise also had the big scar. So I was a little bit, I was looking forward to seeing who has the scar in the Discovery timeline, or in the Discovery Mirror Universe, and I was like, nobody really has. I guess Detmer
doesn't have the scar.
Doesn't have the scar. So
my daughter thinks that's the most amazing thing, that she doesn't have that thing on her eye. She's like totally freaking out about that. She's like, oh, she doesn't have that thing on her. What's going on? So they unscarred her. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. One thing I find fascinating about the Mirror Universe is that when the Discovery first entered into this debris field of destroyed ships, Burnham picked up on hull signatures and all sorts of data that said, everything's off by this, and they're giving out the wrong kind of vibes on the metal and whatever, and we've got to change the way we're perceived by the other ships so that we're not detected as being, different from them and whatever. But I was thinking that surely the people, the Terran Empire people or anybody else there, they can't be so dumb as to just accept them for who they are. They must have some kind of technology that reads their body signatures or whatever and say, hang on, you look like us, but you're not us. Just in the same way that they recognized the Terran people and said, yeah, you look like us, but you're not us because your hulls are different and your warp drive signature is different or whatever.
Yeah, well, I guess they got that data cube from the Klingon wreckage and they were able to study up real fast. I guess Tony was alluding to the fact that everything in the Mirror Universe has a different, what they call quantum signature from everything in our universe. Mm-hmm. And because Discovery was so easy, so quick to pick up on the fact that everything else around them had a different quantum signature, and then therefore used that evidence to deduce that they were in an alternate universe, why can't people in the Mirror Universe just scan Discovery the same way and be like, oh, you don't have the same quantum signature as us, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe that's just not something that you would really look for. Like when you meet somebody on the street, you don't think to test, are you from my universe or not? So you don't that very
I do that
scan.
all the time. Are you from my universe? Because I don't recognize you.
Well, they did say in the last episode, Burnham did do something that made it appear like they were from this universe. But so I guess that we just have to accept that it made it happen to the people as well. Like
but they were only there about like 5 minutes when the Cooper came in and says, you hanging around to pick up some more,
Yeah, it was after that they made that change. It was even after that. So, but yeah, exactly. The first time the Cooper comes up to them, they're probably not going to notice a you or an I right away because the ship looks like it and it's expected that ship is there.
I know
because again, it did switch places with the ISS. The ISS is in our universe.
Is that what it's doing?
Who knows what?
I wonder who's the captain of the ISS. Oh, it's Captain Tilly, isn't it? Yeah.
Right, yeah. So Tilly's off, blowing up planets in our universe here, I guess, hey?
Yeah.
So,
or getting her hair straightened.
But you know what I thought was going to blow their cover? I didn't think it was going to be some like deep tricorder scan looking at quantum signatures, but I really thought that mind meld from Mirror Sarek on Michael Burnham was really he was just gonna blow their cover and be like, you have a completely different set of memories and history. You exist in a federation. What is going on? You're not from here. But I guess that didn't happen. He didn't blow her cover. Whether or not he's aware of everything that she's been through and what she's trying to do is still uncertain.
Well, I wonder if in Mirror Universe, did Mirror Sarek have a Mirror Burnham grow up on his planet?
Okay, so that's one of my theories for the end of the episode here. So I don't know if we want to touch on that right now.
Got ahead of myself.
Okay.
I'm willing to give that theory right now here. So
sure.
Okay, but I do want to come back. So make sure I don't forget. I do want to come back to this mind meld. But with the reveal of Georgiou as being the Emperor, I think hands down, Burnham was raised by Georgiou in this universe. I think that is the only logical way that story can go. And that leads to, I'll go into it at the end, but I have a whole theory on it that I tweeted the other day that I do want to get down in a recorded format here as evidence that I did predict it.
Okay.
But there is more to the theory on why I think that as well. So we will get to that at the end. But I think that Georgiou was definitely the maternal figure for her, right? Which would, anyways. But I do want to get back to that mind meld because that is one of the notes that I had. I really think that's fascinating because clearly Sarek had an Amanda in this universe because we have Spock in this universe because we're led to believe that this is the mirror universe.
That's true.
Okay. So when he sees these memories of young Burnham looking up at Sarek and young Burnham with Amanda, I too was like, what? Why is he not addressing this? Why are we not talking about this? Why is Sarek not like, what is going on here and losing his Vulcan cool? So
I think it's because he is a Vulcan and he would be processing this information. And I think he knows immediately that this is not the Michael Burnham he may have known or may not have known, according to your theory. But he's going with it because there's something fascinating in the Vulcan terminology going on here, and he wants to get to the bottom of it. However, he's only been tasked with the idea: is she telling the truth or not? And he's just answering the question. All the other information he'll store in his brain for some other time.
But the impression that I got is that was the information that he was pulling from her mind. That's the impression that I got from the way that scene was edited. Mike, looks like you think of that as well?
Yeah. Well, like I said before, it's kind of interesting that he doesn't just completely blow her cover and say outright, you're not from here. Obviously because you have memories growing up on Vulcan, you have memories of another Sarek who doesn't have a beard, you have memories of a different starship, a different crew, and a federation. And so I don't really know it's an enigma to me, how much Sarek actually gleaned from that mind meld. Because it does look like he understands her entire history, at least the same history that we know as the viewers of Discovery from all of those flashes of playbacks of scenes that we have seen. So I'm intrigued to see what happens with that and whether or not we see Mirror Sarek again and what he does with whatever information that he has.
Okay. So while we're with these rebels here, we'll quickly touch on, so we got Andorians with a new look, and we got Tellarites with a new look.
Yeah.
Now, what do you guys think of this, Mike?
Well, I was a little bit bothered at the beginning by the Klingons' new look. So compared to that I'm totally cool with the way the Andorians and the Tellarites look, even though the Tellarites have tusks now when they never really had tusks before. But that's all right, you know. I mean, the Klingons shouldn't even have any cranial ridges right now, but they do, so that's fine. If I can accept that, then I can accept tusks on Tellarites. And you know, I always love Andorians. I think that they look pretty true to form, maybe a few extra angles here or there on their faces, but whatever. You know, it's just really nice to see those familiar faces again on Star Trek, and I was looking forward to that, because one of my favorite things from Enterprise was Stran, and so I would expect to see more Andorians in the Discovery universe as well, or the Discovery series as well.
Tony.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
No, I was happy to see them. I know they're messing around with the looks of all the regular aliens, you know, bringing them to date or leaving them in the past. I don't know. But they're certainly altering their appearances. And I didn't really have a problem with it. It was interesting to see the Tellarites with the tusks. I read somebody commenting, yeah, but why wouldn't they have tusks? You know, they're little pig-like people. You know, that's perfectly normal. How come they never did it before? But there you go.
Well, I didn't mind them. Like, I like the Andorians. I think the Andorians are looking really cool. But the Tellarites, I love the design of it. I still prefer the Enterprise and Tellarites myself. That's my favorite of the three that we've seen so far, I guess. But I do love that they're taking a modern approach with some of these aliens and really, really updating them and making them look a little different. So I think that's pretty cool. And bravo on the props and makeup department, because, they've done a really good job. So I think this is great.
Did the Andorian guy actually speak, or
Yeah, he did. When they were in there, he had a gun on Tyler when Tyler attacked Voq. And, And he
he didn't call him Pinkskin.
They didn't call him Pinkskin. No, they didn't.
Nah.
So, okay. So let's talk about the reveal of the Firewolf. So Tony, were you expecting this? Because I saw the image on the next time on Star Trek Discovery. I'm like, that's got to be Voq sitting at the head of that table there. Tony, did you see that coming? Were you surprised? Were you expecting somebody else?
Absolutely surprised, because I hadn't seen that little still image of the fight scene and blurry picture of a guy who looked like Voq. So I kind of sensed it would be him suddenly, but
because Aubrey hadn't seen it and she thought T'Kuvma for sure. She's like, oh, it's going to be T'Kuvma.
So I always watch Discovery with a bunch of friends here at Caltech. We've got a sort of a watch group together, and either because we read fan theories or people came up with it on their own, we were all very suspicious that Tyler was going to end up being Voq or Voq. I don't know
Voq.
The correct pronunciation. It's Voq.
It is
okay,
Voq.
Voq.
Yep.
And so, you know, we were all just waiting for that reveal to happen, and so they beam down to the planet, and then you get this shot of Voq at the head of the table, and then it sort of like cuts to Tyler's reaction, and he's just like, you know, his face is slack, and he's just like, oh my God, that's me, right? And we all just laughed because it was like this, you know, release of tension. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, like he's looking at himself basically, and that ended up being a really important plot point, right? Because it was that interaction with his mirror universe self still in Klingon form that really pushed him over the edge and allowed the Voq subconscious to rise to the top. And I have in the notes that I took on this episode that, you know, if it weren't for Burnham pushing Voq to Mirror Voq to like talk about his Klingonness and how he can get along with all of these other species in the rebellion against the Terran Empire, that I'm, you know, would Tyler actually have cracked so soon? Because it was only during that interrogation, that extra push that Burnham was putting on Voq, that Tyler started really having those flashbacks left and right.
Right.
And so like if Burnham hadn't needed to do that for her own sake of just trying to understand how to make peace with Klingons, I don't know if Tyler would have actually cracked so soon. And that was kind of interesting to me.
I was incredibly surprised that, I did not predict at all that our characters would know about Voq Tyler this soon in the season. I thought that was going to be like a second last episode climax cliffhanger that they would finally figure it out myself. But I think it's fascinating where this story's going to go, because at the end of the episode, right after he attacks her, which I loved how they did it with Saru saving her and saying he made an attempt on the captain. Like, you don't have to explain anything. And I'm like, how are they going to explain this? It's like, oh, it's the Mirror Universe. He just made an attempt on the captain. That was brilliant. And beaming him over to the Discovery, well, he's going to be in the jail cell in the brig with L'Rell. Like, we're going to see some awesome stuff with him and L'Rell over the next couple episodes, I think. For
sure. And I mean, that beaming him over as a way to transfer that little data chip with the classified information on the Defiant, I mean, just what a brilliant move by Michael Burnham. Like, at first I thought, you know, she's really going to do it. She's really just going to kill him. And then she decides that she's going to actually work the transporter controls by herself. And at that point, I was like, okay, she's not actually going to kill him. She's going to hide him somewhere else in the ship. And then it cuts to him in space, and I'm like, oh my God, she actually killed him. And then he gets beamed up into the Discovery, and Saru just picks up the data chip out of his pocket. I'm like, oh my God, this was so brilliant. Like, Michael Burnham is super, super, super smart.
But you're forgetting she got the idea from Captain Georgiou, who put a little photon torpedo inside the dead body of a Klingon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, from the very beginning, her skills as a tactician, her just mental aptitude. I mean, like, she outwitted a computer at the Battle of the Binary Stars to like drop the force field and fly across like missing bulkheads into another corridor. It's just like, wow, this is such great sci-fi writing. I really love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, it's really well done. I'm really looking forward to how that finishes. But yeah, I loved it too. As soon as she punched him, I'm like, okay, what did she just do? I actually said that to my wife. I'm like, what did she just do?
Yeah.
And we turned to each other and we're like, what could she have possibly done? And it was actually my wife who's like, she put the data chip on him. And I'm like, okay. And then when she went over, I'm like, okay, she's beaming him directly to the Discovery. She contacted Saru and she's going to beam him directly to the Discovery. And then they cut to space and I'm like, oh my, that was, yeah, okay, so.
Yeah, but
yeah, they had me going for a second too there, so that's wonderful. I'm really glad with that last fake out of seeing him actually in space. That was really good.
But she had to do that, and of course when he gets on board, when he's beamed on board Discovery, he is being treated as a prisoner, but for totally different reasons. Going back to the Voq Ash confrontation, but I can't understand why he attacked him. Was he thinking that he's dishonoring the Klingon cause by siding with all his enemies?
That's what I got from it.
Yeah, that's what I assumed as well.
Yeah,
because he was having those flashbacks of that conversation that he had with the Takuma in the first episode.
Oh yeah, the dirty Klingons, the
humans, the dirty Andorians, the Tellarites, and here's this Klingon who's siding with all of those exact species, which is wonderful writing. Like, that's what a wonderful callback to that scene. Anywho, yeah, so we got a lot going on. We got a lot of things happening here. But we got this very fascinating reveal right near the end with Stamets. And how he is, like, still somehow consciously in the mycelium network. And then he dies, but then he comes back to life, and they use, technobabble and mushrooms to bring him back to life. And inside the mycelium network is Mirror Stamets, who's been expecting him. Yeah. This was quite the reveal, and I'm like, oh man, I did not see that coming.
Same. So, well, wasn't that a throwback to that time when he was brushing his teeth in the mirror?
Maybe.
And then he walked away. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I first started suspecting the Mirror Universe after I saw the mirror thing. I was like, that's kind of obvious.
Dropping hints like crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that scene. I mean, there's so much open-endedness that could happen just from that little interaction, right? The Mirror Stamets just like, about time, Paul, like you finally made it here, let's get to work. And what are they going to be working on? I have no idea. And this just opens up the door back to like, what is Mirror Discovery doing in our universe? Who knows what kind of havoc they're wrecking? Why is Mirror Stamets also in this sort of subconscious other plane of the mycelial network? Yeah.
Well, I got some theories on that we'll talk about at the end too. So
okay, just going back to something we said earlier when we were talking about Sarek. He's seeing flashbacks inside Michael Burnham's mind of a different universe with a different Sarek and a different Amanda and whatever. But I'm wondering, because the Defiant had made it into the Terran universe or the Terran Empire, that he's not already aware, and now he's seeing evidence of it, or he's come across whoever was on the Defiant, and he's aware of their abilities.
Well, a good question to ask you, Brandon, since you recently rewatched Mirror Mirror. I haven't seen that episode in a couple of years, so I don't quite remember, but was the Mirror Enterprise crew surprised to find this other Kirk? Did they seem like they were aware already that other universes could exist and that they were receiving travelers, or was this seemingly the first time that they,
figured it out? Yeah. They had no clue. I mean, it was the first episode,
right?
Canonically, but they had no clue, and even at the very end, Spock didn't really understand what was going on until he mind melded with Dr. McCoy at the very end. Right, so he didn't really put it all together until the very, very, very end of the episode. So yeah, they had no clue. So I mean, technically, what people are saying right now as the Mirror Universe series of episodes to watch is the first thing you watch is Tholian Web, and then you watch In a Mirror Darkly, and then you watch Mirror Mirror. Okay, and that's kind of the order that people put things in now. Kind of an interesting little series of episodes to watch, but. Yeah, no, I don't think that they had any idea that was happening.
Just to be consistent with that aspect of Mirror Mirror, whatever happens here in Discovery, it can't be the Terran Empire can't have it well known that there is another universe out there that is our own universe. And so I'm guessing then, because the Defiant was from our universe and was taken over by Archer and his crew, and then eventually Empress Hoshi, that secret that came with the Defiant just stayed within like the most highest echelons of the Terran Empire, and so.
Right, because there's been lots of speculations about the Defiant because, like the warp nacelle legs or whatever they're called, I'm not sure what the struts are a little bit curved.
Yeah.
And there's these indents in the saucer section. And, it's been 100 years that it's been over there, so changes could have been made.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
But, maybe it's been out of service for a long time as well, right? It doesn't have to be in service right now just because they have this file that states that the ship is there. Like, it could be out of service for 80 years.
True.
Hoshi could have used it for 20 years to solidify her reign as Empress and left it at that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, who knows?
Yeah, we didn't see the ship that she was on, that they were firing all the photon torpedoes from, or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I was hoping they would cut to that ship, but alas.
But Tony, what do you think of Paul Stamets showing up, the Mirror Paul Stamets showing up in this mycelium mental universe?
Well, if we're following the type of mind that Paul Stamets has, which is, investigating the spore drive, discovering all about how to get from A to B, then maybe we can assume that evil Paul Stamets, if he is in fact evil, has been doing exactly the same thing. That maybe he's been aware of the difficulties that our Paul is getting into, almost dead, and he's going to supply him with some kind of a lifeline, some kind of way back. Maybe they'll swap places.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Okay, so let's move on to Georgiou as Empress. So, they purposely left it vague in the last episode. They were not using any gender pronouns. They were not saying he or she. They just said Emperor every time they referred to it. The internet had this predicted that it had to be Georgiou. I think that's the only plot point that would have made sense. So I think that's pretty interesting. But I got to ask, and then Michael, maybe you can help me with this one here too, because you've got a Chinese ancestry, right?
Sure.
And there's a lot of people out there, and I've seen multiple people say it, that she's got to be a descendant of Hoshi Sato as the Empress. And I tweeted the other day, I'm like, okay, so why does everybody think this? Is it just because they're both Asian that people think this? I mean, Hoshi Sato has a Japanese ancestry, and Philippa Georgiou is a Chinese ancestry. And while, yes, there could be crossing borders and stuff like this, I don't know. Like, is that something that crossed your mind, or what do you think of that theory?
Oh, it definitely crossed my mind. Like most everyone else who's been following Discovery with a close eye, I predicted that, Georgiou would be the Empress or the Emperor at the, in the middle of episode 10, when they were just like throwing around this genderless emperor person. I was like, oh, it's got to be Georgiou. That would be, that would just be perfect. I didn't think that she would get revealed as being Georgiou quite so soon. But she did, and of course I screamed because it was just really awesome to see Michelle Yeoh back on screen. Like, yay, you didn't actually, you did die, but like you're still alive in the Mirror universe, which is great. About this whole Empress Sato Emperor Georgiou link, I have like two minds on this. First of all, just because you're Asian doesn't mean that you're related to every single other Asian person directly, like a direct lineage. That would be sort of stupid to assume. And then also just like the Mirror universe, this backstabbing nature, like how could you have a single line of descendants rule the Terran Empire for so long, for over 100 years, when the whole premise of the Terran Empire is that you assassinate the people above you to take their spot. Right. And so I was just like, that seems very unlikely. But then at the same time, it's like, it would kind of be interesting to like mention Hoshi, and really talk about something that happened in an Enterprise episode for sure. And also the whole sort of ambiguity of like George Takei's character, the original Sulu on the show, thinking about how for Gene Roddenberry, the Enterprise was an analogy for Starship Earth, and George Takei's character Sulu represented sort of Pan-Asia. He wasn't supposed to be, Japanese or Chinese or Korean or any specific thing, but, he named him Sulu because of the Sulu Sea, and seas touch all shorelines, and this was all very poetic. And then when they cast John Cho as new Sulu in the J.J. Abrams Trek, it was like, can a Korean person play George Takei's role? And George Takei was like, of course he can, that's not even a question that you should be asking. So I don't know. Whatever they decide, it's going to be like okay with me. I think I won't make a big fuss about it. I probably would make a bigger fuss about the Klingons having forehead ridges, that kind of deal, because I'm like, they had a scientific explanation for that. They didn't honor. So, but yeah,
I'm more interested in to know why she has a Romanian name.
Well, in the book, Dayton Ward. David Mack, wrote that she has a Greek ex-husband. So that's why she's got that name, but she kept the name. So I want to talk about this because we are trying to talk about social issues as well while we're talking about talking about Discovery here on the Edge. And I had mentioned this in a tweet. I said, why do people think this? Just because they're both Asian doesn't mean they're related. And a person responded to my tweet, and they thought I was attacking them personally because I used the same images that they used on another thread where they proposed that theory. And they're like, people are calling me racist. And somebody quoted my tweet, and they said exactly this whole theory reeks of racism. And I'm like, I don't unless I seriously misunderstand what racism means, it's not racist to think that. It's just ignorance to think that, But not just ignorance. It's not simply people being ignorant. It goes back to that whole thing that we've been talking about over the edge, and that people are trying to predict the show because they don't want to be caught off guard. So they are coming up with elaborate theories for everything because crazy things keep happening. And, I don't know. I got a little upset because that wasn't the intention of my tweet. And two people interpreted it in completely different ways with the same kind of end result. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I think that people are hypersensitive on a lot of this stuff. And you can't just assume negative intent from people when they make a comment like this as well. Right? Maybe not everybody knows and is as deep in our fandom to think that Hoshi Sato is Japanese and Georgiou's Chinese. They might not know that. So right. To some people, they look the same. I did want to talk about that a little bit because it is something that's come up and I've seen multiple times and I've seen a lot of initial blowback from it. And I don't know. So I just wanted to address that here a little bit. But Georgiou being the Empress is pretty amazing. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see her in the next couple episodes. Because honestly, as a part of my theories, I think we're going to be here for the rest of the season. I don't think we're getting out of the Mirror Universe anytime soon. But are there any specific comments you want to make on the episode so far before we jump into theories? Anything I haven't touched yet that you guys would like to talk about?
Well, yeah, because when she appears on the bridge of the Shenzhou, she makes a reference to Lorca, but he had a little smirk on his face when she appeared. And again, he's hard to read, but she seemed to imply that he was her man, and it was kind of welcome home. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I got from it.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, so I interpreted those few lines of dialogue a little differently. I didn't think that Georgiou was implying that she had recently spoken to Lorca. I thought that she was just saying, it's been a long time since I've seen you. I've sort of missed you, Michael Burnham, but I can't say the same about Lorca. I haven't missed seeing you because you just tried to kill me. Or the last time, I saw you, you were trying to kill me or something like that.
Right, okay.
So I didn't think that it was a temporal hint that she had just recently seen him, or that she just doesn't want to see him anymore.
Right.
And she's not super happy to see him. But I guess since Mirror Lorca has been brought up and we're sort of segueing into theories, I think the evidence for me is getting stronger and stronger that Lorca actually is from the Mirror Universe, the Lorca that we've seen all along.
Okay, so I'm leaning towards this as well. However, there is one thing that puts a gigantic wrench in this theory for me.
A gigantic wrench?
So maybe we can talk about that right now. And what puts a wrench in this whole theory for me is when Lorca in the last episode was going to answer the hail, he was about to answer the hail, and Burnham says, "Belay that, you're not the captain, Tilly is." So with him getting ready to answer that hail, that would have put everything in jeopardy. So that is the only thing that I can't get around, and my big theory does revolve around him being in the Mirror Universe. What do you guys think about that, and how do we address that, him trying to answer that hail? What do you think?
I think that's a fascinating theory.
I think that's a great point. I hadn't thought of that before.
That's the only thing that throws a wrench. Mike, what do you think of that?
Well, it's possible. So that that Lorca, when he was... No... Because he was a Terran Empire captain, right? He was the captain of the Baran.
The Baran.
Yeah. So, no, I was going to say if he was like a rebel, maybe he wouldn't necessarily know the crews of the, Terran Empire starships, and, maybe he would have just thrown on one of his cool accents, because we know he can do that now. But yeah, if he was captain of the Baran, he should know who the captain of the Discovery was, and he should have... Well, maybe because if he's really from the Mirror Universe, he's played so many people, and it could just be that if he had said to his crew, hey, Tilly, you got to answer this call because you're the captain of the Discovery in the Mirror Universe, his bridge crew would be like, how the hell do you know that? You're sitting in the captain's chair. You're not looking at the crew manifest. So maybe because he has to not only fool the Mirror Universe people that, the Discovery is actually the Mirror Universe Discovery, he has to fool his crew that he is the original, or he is our universe's Lorca. And so maybe that was just part of his playing of his crew.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I can buy that one. I can work with that one. That he just was like counting on it because he's kind of a strategic individual, and my whole theory does base on that. So I'm going to save mine for the end. Okay. But do you have any theories that you'd like to project for where you think the next couple episodes are going to go, or anything else that you want to predict? Geez, I can't even talk tonight. Predict. Okay. I'm saying so many words wrong tonight. Goodness.
The only thing is I'm going to say is based on a post I did on the Babel conference a few months ago, is that with Ash Tyler and his little goatee beard and his augmented Klingon-ness now looking more human-like, that he is the instigator or the beginnings of Klingons that we see in the TOS era.
Mike, you got any theories?
I'm sure my theories aren't as well woven as yours, but I'm sort of expecting just real simply that I don't think we're going to be returning with Lorca when we come back from the Mirror Universe to our universe, whenever that happens to be. Maybe next episode, probably at the end of the season, maybe after the end of the season. But I don't think Lorca's coming back with us. Okay. Mainly because I think he is Mirror Universe Lorca. And I also think that Ash Tyler is not going to make it through the end of the season. I think we're going to say goodbye to him. And I think, Dr. Culber is going to make an appearance. I think the Mirror Dr. Culber is going to make an appearance because mainly the press releases that all went out last week with Wilson Cruz basically saying, we're going to see him again. Don't worry. Yeah. He's going to come back. So I'm looking forward to how that weaves into the whole story, because apparently Stamets' and Culber's love story is an epic one that spans the cosmos. So yeah. But honestly, what I'm looking most forward to in Discovery is something that I have absolutely no theory about, and that is just what is happening to Stamets, because that is the most interesting thing to me as a scientist, to like explore these hidden realms of the mind and of space and time. And honestly, I cannot even begin to predict what is going to happen, and I'm just so excited for all of that to get filled in by the writers for me.
Cool, right on. I've got a couple of thoughts. Now, keep in mind, I've seen the first 9 episodes 5 times each already, and I've seen the last episode 4 times and this one 3 times already.
My goodness.
Yeah, I know. I just, to prepare for the podcast, I watch a lot. But
yeah.
Okay, so I think that that Stamets is on Georgiou's ship. The Mirror Stamets is on Georgiou's ship. Right, and that Georgiou's ship has the spore drive technology, and that's how that ship was able to come out of nowhere. Like they didn't see it coming from anywhere. So I think that they spore jumped in to that area, and so that's going to play with them getting out. I don't know if the Defiant's going to end up being a false lead. It'll be really interesting if we do see the Defiant. I will love that. But my main theory that I've got going on right now is with Lorca being from the Mirror Universe. And so what's happened is Mirror Lorca killed Mirror Burnham. And in retaliation, Mirror Georgiou destroyed the crew of the Baran. So I think that she had that strong of a reaction because Burnham was her ward. Mm-hmm. And she had a bond with Burnham. So that's why I think that that's happened in the Mirror Universe. Now, Lorca was so freaked out and upset, and somehow he knew about the Defiant, he knew about the multiple worlds, and so he came over to our universe to try and see if he can get his own crew back or something like that. Now, my theory's not 100% sound, and this is kind of falls apart here a little bit too. And So he either killed Lorca to take care of the crew and then killed his own crew in this timeline, or killed Lorca because Lorca killed his crew in this timeline. I'm not quite sure where. But this would also explain why he's so attached to Burnham and doesn't want anything to happen to her, because he needed to bring her back over to this universe, because his final intention is to have Burnham kill Georgiou. Because that would be an insult to Georgiou to have Burnham kill her, because it's her ward. So
right, I agree.
That's my crazy theory.
Yeah.
And that would be a mirror with Burnham's storyline, because she betrayed her and caused her death, and now she's going to have to cause her death, but more directly, and like it's going to all kind of play out like that. So that's my crazy elaborate theory that it takes me watching every episode 5 times in order to come up with. But
no, I really like that theory, and it definitely explains why Lorca is so protective of Burnham, and why he finds her such a special, asset to his crew, besides the fact that she's very talented as a Starfleet officer. But really, when she volunteered to go to the Ship of the Dead with Tyler on that boarding party, he was like, no, don't go. It was such an obvious choice to send her to go, right? And as she explained to him, I am the only person who is really capable of doing this job. So why does he not want her to go? He needs her alive, right? He needs her alive for his grand master plan.
Yeah, he told Ash to make sure she comes back or don't come back yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's definitely got a special place for her in his heart of evil hearts, I guess.
Evil, goatee bearded.
Yeah, but that's what's so cool about seeing if Mirror Lorca ends up being true. It's that we started off Discovery thinking, oh gosh, this captain is unlike any other Federation captain. He's such an evil, shady captain. But really what he's trying to do is take down the emperor of an oppressive, racist, xenophobic regime, which is actually a good thing, right? He's trying to kill, that's not such a bad goal to have. So,
but he's doing it for personal vindictive reasons.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's all shady in the Mirror universe.
Yeah. I tell you what, speaking of the Emperor, it totally ruined my theory that Harry Mudd would be the Emperor.
I am not disappointed that Harry Mudd was not the Emperor. I'm not disappointed that did not happen. So, Anywho, excellent. Well, that's it. We're going to wrap up our conversation there. I think we're hitting an hour on our end of the conversation. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us on The Edge again. You're welcome back anytime. You're welcome back on Warp 5 anytime. Please tell everybody a podcast and let them know where they can find you online if they want to follow you.
Yeah, so I've got a podcast called Strange New Worlds, a science and Star Trek podcast, and on it we basically talk about the real science that appears in Star Trek, and we analyze Star Trek from a scientific perspective, and we also talk to real-life scientists who were really influenced in their career paths by Star Trek, which is always really fun to see. So if you like the intersection between science fiction and real-world science, check out Strange New Worlds, and you can always tweet at me at Miquai, Miquai, and I'm usually tweeting about either science or Star Trek, so it should be a fun time.
Excellent, right on. Tony, where can people find you?
Well, on the Babel Conference, I pop up from time to time. And on Twitter, Shamrock165, somebody will tweet me and say, why is that? And I'll explain everything. But that's where I am.
It's because in the Mirror universe, shamrocks are not good luck.
This is true. And we all have goatee beards, little green ones.
Well, talking about Star Trek Discovery is not the only thing we've been discussing here on the network this week, so please take a listen to this clip and see what else you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, I think, for sure. Well, in this novel, it's very much about the Klingons and their society, and it's from the perspective there's a framing story basically in which Captain Kirk starts reading a book called The Final Reflection, which is told from the perspective of the Klingons, and it's ostensibly the book that we are reading here. This is the book that Kirk's reading in this book.
Stage 9, a podcast about the people who make Star Trek.
Starts off with a quote, "Revenge is a dish that is best served cold," and it's credited as an old Klingon proverb. So,
yeah,
that means that Kill Bill takes place in the Star Trek universe.
To the journey!
I like that they take a two-dimensional movie and watch it in a three-dimensional environment, only to experience it as a two-dimensional image watched in 3D that we are watching at home on a two-dimensional screen. This is meta beyond meta beyond meta.
And he's gone meta again.
You really have gone meta now. My brain just failed completely during that.
Warp 5.
And I think it's one that gets overlooked a lot because of a couple reasons. I think it gets overlooked because it's simply a one-shot episode in season 4. And I think it gets overlooked because it seems like a fan service episode for the Organians. And honestly, every time I start watching the episode, I'm like, why do we need the Organians in season 4?
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
So check out all these shows and join in on the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe, or even the Mirror universe. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, please be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or on the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and a written review. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 from our website or grab the RSS link as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's Babel, into the search field on Facebook, and it should come right up. If you're in the Mirror universe, that's LEBAB. If you'd like to send us an email, you can choose the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose Send to a Show and select the Edge. That will come right to us. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Shea. You can find me over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom. And we are covering Alfred Hitchcock's movies one at a time, all the way from the beginning, and we're just about done his silent era right now. You can also find me here on the network with a show called Warp 5, with my new co-hosts, Brandy and Patrick. And their first episode as co-hosts will be released today, so that's pretty exciting, so be sure to check that out. And the episode that we're doing today is everybody's favorite episode from each season of Star Trek Enterprise, so that's a lot of fun. If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more. Available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM. Well, it's been a whole heck of a lot of fun talking about all of the wonderful theories that we have from our Mirror Universe trip here on Star Trek Discovery, but we couldn't do any of it without our wonderful, wonderful patrons of the show. We've got so many of them, and they're all wonderful, wonderful people. Norman C. Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Puleo, Lisa Slack, Shoab Mirza, Richard Rutledge, James Muldrow, and our brand new one, Cornelia Reutner. Thank you so much for being patrons of the show, and for all the support that you give us, and you're actually supporting the whole network. Well, that's all we've got for you today, so be sure to tune in again next week and find out what we've been doing on the edge of Federation space.